Coming home. Cowl. A voice. 5. A voice calls out. Prepare for Yahowah's return. If only Yisra'el had listened to their king's first 5 songs, if they had recognized that their Messiah had been here twice before and would return, if only they had come to trust the beloved Son of God both 2 and 3,000 years ago, how different their history would have been. They would not have suffered under the Moabites, the Assyrians, Babylonians, Macedonians, Romans, Roman Catholics, Byzantines, Muslims, Ottomans, British, Europeans, Nazis, Soviet Russians, Poles, Ukrainians, or so-called Palestinians. And even now, it is not too late. We have previously discovered that the single most cited messianic prophecy, Yashayah Isaiah 9 verse 6, a child is born unto us, and a son is given to us, actually pertains to the Gibbor God's most capable and courageous man, Daud. It was written to address his second and third arrivals. While we should have recognized it long ago, Yashayah Isaiah 40 verse 3 was spoken about Daud as well. It is so obvious when considered in context, we should not have needed him to bring it to our attention, and yet, that is what Daud has done since the first word of his first song. He has stayed on topic, revealing what fewer than 1 in 10 million appreciate: he was the Passover lamb. The religious are keen on mining and misappropriating prophecies. Their propensity is to truncate God's message and remove every statement from its context, mistranslate it, and then misrepresent its intent. This results in misleading the adherents of Judaism and Christianity. For example, while Jews simply ignored it, Christians purloined the prophecy in Isaiah 40 to create an elaborate ruse to circumvent circumcision with baptism while ascribing Daud's status as the Son of God to their mythical Jesus Christ. However, as we will soon demonstrate, this prophecy is not even about Daud's return to fulfill Chag Matzah in year 4000 Yah, but, instead, his arrival in year 6000 Yah, 2033, to usher in the day of reconciliations. This being so, rather than prove that Jesus was the Son of God and that he favored baptism over circumcision, it demonstrates that the authors of the Christian New Testament cannot be trusted. It also means that rabbis are not very bright and should not be trusted either because they made no effort to properly ascribe the prophecy to the right person in correct time, leaving Jews to be maligned by the Christian religion which grew out of this grotesque misappropriation of one of Yashayah's prophecies. So now that Daud has brought this to our attention, let's interrupt our review of Mizmor Psalm 5 long enough to determine the audience to which it was originally addressed, to assess when it will be fulfilled, and to ascertain the change in thinking that will precede this occasion, all while considering the portent of the promise being shared with us. Since these questions are all answered in Yashayah Isaiah 40 verses 1 to 2, let's begin there. Choose to change your thinking and relent, and you will be comforted and consoled, Nakam, by electing to reconsider, altering your opinions regarding what is true of your own free will. You will find relief from your sorrows and distress and will be encouraged. Peel imperative. Your choices will cause you to experience this result. My people, and Penny, my family, therefore speaking of Yehuda and Yisra'el, promises your God. Amar Elohim Adam, declares your Almighty One. Yashayah Isaiah 40 verse 1. That is the issue. There are few which are more important. Yahowah cannot help his people until such time as they choose of their own free will to change their minds, their thinking, their perspective, and relent. Only then can they be comforted and consoled. By electing to reconsider, altering their opinions regarding what is true, they will find relief from their sorrows and distress, and they will be encouraged. This is the reason behind the covenant's lone prerequisite: walk away from your country, away from Babel and Babylon, away from your father's family in the family of man, and away from societal norms, mores, and presuppositions. Until and unless this occurs, God remains unknowable, and salvation is unobtainable. Further, this Amar promise was made to Yahowah's people and not to an unknown Gentile church. The 40% of Israelis and Jews worldwide who are not religious, who define themselves as secularists, are reachable in this regard. If you are counted among them, this message is for you. Speak, Daber, desire to communicate, Peel imperative, from the heart, exercising good judgment, Auleb, with the proper intent and motivation, unto Yerushalayim, source from which teaching and guidance regarding reconciliation flow. Make an announcement, summoning her by reciting to her, Kara El Hai, call out an invitation to her, proclaiming by reading to her, in conjunction with the Mikra, that indeed, Ky, surely and truly, her battles, Saba, Hai, her time of enduring the presence of armies and her military campaigns, are finished and completed, male, fulfilled and satisfied, and thus ended and over. The consequence of her missing the way, A1, her propensity to be wrong by perverting and twisting the truth, is pardoned through restitution, causing her to be accepted, regaining favor, Ratza, she has been reconciled because this has been resolved by making amends, compensation has been paid for her, leading her toward being in agreement, the relationship restored at this moment, Nifel perfect, because she has obtained, Lakach, she has grasped hold of and obtained, Kal perfect, from the hand, Min Yad, of Yahowah, the proper pronunciation of the name of Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence and our shalom, restoration, a double portion, Kefil, twice as much, for all of her, Ba Kol, errant and mistaken ways, Chada, offensive and perverted propositions which mislead. Yashayah Isaiah 40 verse 2. Let's be honest with ourselves, trust our God, and be fair to his beloved Son. None of these things occurred circa 30 CE, and most are still ongoing. Thanks to Judaism, and Rabbi Akiba's false Messiah, rather than relent religiously, Jews doubled down against father and son during the 1st and 2nd centuries CE. Further, while Daud provided the means for restitution, God's people universally rejected it 2,000 years ago, and nothing has changed since that time. The hardship Jews would endure for having failed to recognize Daud's fulfillment of Chag Matzah would lead to the double portion of hardship, not resolve it. The battles for the control of Jerusalem were not over in 30 CE, just the opposite. Romans were poised to steal it and drive Jews away into slavery. The Roman Catholic Church would claim it and battle Muslims for it over the next 1,000 years. Jerusalem is still a battleground today. Therefore, the prophet is addressing God's family, Yehudah and Yisra'el, at a future time when the people are no longer religious, and the nation's last battle has been fought and won. Yisra'el has most assuredly not changed her collective mindset toward Yahuwah, and the people have not been comforted. Her battles not only continue, but the assaults orchestrated by Vespasian, Titus, and later Hadrian between 68 and 135 CE were devastating. Israel is still forced to fight for her survival. As recently as 75 years ago, Europeans engaged in ethnic cleansing, aka genocide during the last World War, a double portion, indeed. The new nation fought for her independence in 1948, and then for her very existence in 1967 and 1973. Further, she has one final battle, an enormous one, in her immediate future. Therefore, we can conclude with absolute confidence based upon Yeshayahu 40:2 that Yeshayahu 40:3 was not fulfilled 2,000 years ago. It, therefore, did not apply to Jesus. He, therefore, cannot be the Son of God. The Christian New Testament is false. And as such, there has been no justification for replacement theology or for Christians denigrating and dehumanizing Jews for the past 2,000 years. God's people are continuing to pay for having missed the way Dowd provided. So, let's be blunt, since this prophecy coincides with a time after which Yisrael has fought her last battle and has suffered for the last time, her relationship with Yahuwah restored, it was not written to predict Jesus' coming out party in the Jordan River with the equally mythical John the Baptist. And with this sober assessment, Christianity goes poof. And that is particularly irritating because the rabbis, by having acknowledged this, would have averted the hell perpetrated upon their people. I do not care if you call yourself a Christian, believe that your Bible is the inerrant word of God, or how much you may identify with Jews for Jesus, find affinity with the Messianics, or love the mythos associated with Yeshua. This does not apply even to the misnomer Jesus. Get over it and get with the program. The Messiah and Son of God, Dowd, announced that he would be used by Yahuwah in conjunction with the fulfillment of this prophecy. A voice, kowl, the sound of a person speaking, calls out, inviting and summoning, kara, reads and recites, calling out and welcoming to the Mikri, in the wilderness, ba ha-midbar, in the desolate and lifeless place where the word is questioned, turn around and choose to change your direction such that you are prepared for, panah, walk away from what you have been, electing to reject it, so that you are ready to face, peel imperative, the way, derek, the path, of Yahuwah, Yahuwah. An accurate transliteration of the name of Eloah, God guided by his Torah, instructions regarding his Hayah, existence and our Shalom, reconciliation. Of your own free will, choose to become straightforward and correct so that you are prepared for, Yatsar, choose to be direct, reliable, and steadfast, standing upright without wandering about, considering the unwavering nature of, peel imperative, an elevated walkway, Masila, a gate to walk through leading to an ascending ramp or stairway, from to consider the implications of Salal, being lifted up and esteemed, through the dark and lifeless fabric of commingling and mixing together. Waba ha-araba, through the barren and desolate wasteland of unenlightened and unassociated nocturnal swarms of noxious pests, even through Arabia where the Torah was revealed, the Wa is from 1 QSA, to approach our God, La Elohi Anaknu, to move toward and draw near our Almighty One. Yeshayahu/Isaiah 40 verse 3. God's people are being asked to listen to someone Yahuwah has predicted will call out to them at this time. He will be summoning them, inviting them to read and recite the testimony Yahuwah has provided in this regard. His role is to call God's people out of the mire and muck of man's religious and political delusions, such that Yisrael turns around, changing direction, so that her people are prepared to accept Yahuwah's way. It is the only acceptable path home. Therefore, to bring an end to the nation's battles, to conclude the people's suffering, and to be reconciled with God, Yisrael and Yehudah must first choose to change direction such that they are prepared to approach Yahuwah. But that's easier said than done, since Jews have deliberately replaced Yahuwah's name with the Lord, making it more likely than not that most will remain ill-equipped to be in God's presence. Then impugning the Christian myth, this is not the way of the Lord, nor of Jesus Christ, but, instead, the way of Yahuwah. Without directly violating the third statement Yahuwah etched on the first of the two tablets, the one that warned us to never negate his name, this prophecy could not have been misunderstood nor errantly interpreted, forestalling misguided Jewish and Christian claims. No one changed their ways in Jerusalem circa 30 CE. There were no Christians, Jews became more religious, and the Romans remained savages. So, should there have been a voice calling out at this time, it would not have been worth mentioning since no one listened and nothing changed. Even today, no Christians and very few Jews are properly versed in the way of Yahuwah to be seen in his company. This, as Dowd revealed, will soon change, at least for Jews. Dowd, serving as the Pesach Isle, opened the doorway to life. And while his fulfillment of Matzah made it possible for us to enter God's home, he did not provide an elevated path to mitigate the Babylonian effect that commingled truth and lies. And while he did reveal how we prepare ourselves such that we are able to walk toward God, even through the darkest and most lifeless wilderness, his message was authored 3,000 years ago. The kowl, voice calling out to God's people in advance of his return is most likely the Towrah, whom Yeshayahu devotes the 11th chapter to describing his role in this regard. It would be reasonable to assume that he is also the witness serving alongside Eliah beginning in 2030, with this message being heralded prior to the beginning of their partnership. As we seek to better understand this prophecy, we find that there are many interrelated ways to render Masila, especially recognizing that it is derived from Salal, to lift up and respect the ability of Yah's way to raise us, lifting us above the Araba, those who are unassociated, living in the darkness where life is squandered. A Mesilah is a raised walkway, an elevated ramp, a path preceded by a gateway, even a staircase. Beyond this, Mesilah speaks of lifting up the upright conduct of one's life to show the way to rise up, revealing the gate to walk through to be lifted out of and above, the fray for those seeking La Elohi Anaknu, to approach our God. Since Yahowah did not use Midbar, the primary Hebrew term for wilderness, a second time, there must be a reason he revealed that the Mesilah, raised path, would go Ba-ha-Araba, through the barren and desolate wasteland of unenlightened and unassociated Arabs, through the nocturnal swarms of noxious pests, and within the gloomy fabric of commingling. While there are likely more, I suspect that there are at least 3 reasons Araba was chosen, the first enlightening, the second prophetic, and the third pragmatic. Deprived of an accurate rendering of Yahowah's testimony, the world is a dark place, one in need of the kind of light Yashayah and the witness is providing. Prophetically, the overwhelming preponderance of people surrounding Yisra'el are noxious Arabs. And pragmatically, this ascending path must go through Arabia, which is where the Torah was revealed to the children of Yisrael en route to the Promised Land. Moreover, Yahowah would task the voice calling out with exposing and condemning the religious blight that emerged from Arabia, among Arabs, in Arabic at the outset of his service. Not long ago, when I asked if you were noticing what I had perceived in Mizmor 5:8, the impetus behind the connection I was forming is now seen here in Yashayah 40:3 with the inclusion of Yatzar, Derek, and Panah, a derivation of Panah. These are the same words we saw at the conclusion of Mizmor 5:8 in the previous chapter. Curious as to whether I was onto something interesting, I pondered the relationship between them, especially as the first 5 psalms painted Daud's contribution to the salvation of his people. It became immediately obvious that Yashayah was predicting something extraordinary, Yahowah's return and the third coming of Daud during the day of reconciliations in the Babel year of 6000 Yah in 2033. Its fulfillment transpires when Daud is tasked with obliterating the Gentile nations ravaging Israel after anointing the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. This realization is extremely important for Yisra'el. The determination of the timing and the purpose of this invitation from our God is derived from the context that Yahowah's prophet provided. Every depression, kol gay, will be raised, nasa, and each, wa kol, elevated place of illicit worship, har wa gibah, will be brought down, shafel, will be leveled. It will transpire, wa haya, that the insidiously deceitful aspects of that which is not on the level, akab, of that which is misappropriated and misconstrued to cause people to fall away and go astray, will be removed and flattened over, la mishar, such that the uneven terrain of obstructionist conspiracies which have made the way impassable, hariks, the binding tethers of enticing collusions which impede progress, these harmful schemes, even the intrigue treacherously blocking the path, will be ripped apart, baika, will be torn asunder. Yashayah/Isaiah 40:4. No matter how one translates or interprets these words, this has not yet occurred. It could not, therefore, pertain to the Pesach Isle, Daud, circa 33 CE, much less to the mythical misnomer, Jesus Christ. It is simply impossible, something which destroys the New Testament's credibility at a place and time that the religion cannot survive among informed and rational minds. The removal of impassable religious obstacles that are a result of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, will transpire upon Daud's return with Yahowah during Yom Kippurim in the Babel year of 6000 Yah, sunset, October 2, 2033. I invite you to compare these insights to those squandered in English Bibles. It's your decision. Is God pushing mountains into valleys such that the earth becomes uninteresting and flat, or is he preparing it for his return by ridding the world of religious shrines, political intrigue, military garrisons, and insidious conspiracies, beginning with those which have served to impede the way of the Mikri Y? Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock will be leveled, along with every other mosque, church, shrine, and synagogue in Israel. Yahowah strikes a blow at those who have come to worship Jesus Christ as the fullness of the Godhead, upon the implement of torture as the dead God on a stick. The people who have dismissed his son will either stand aside from Judaism or be buried along with it. There will be no third chance. What was missed with Daud's fulfillment of Chag Matzah and is being offered again to his people through Yom Kippurim will not be offered again. This is D-Day, the final opportunity to make a decision about father and son and what they have done. Every obstacle, religious, political, conspiratorial, and militaristic, men have placed over and around Yahowah's way will be obliterated and those responsible will be condemned. Places of worship shall be brought down. Depressing places will become uplifting. Everything will be on the straight and level, such that the way is no longer impeded and impassable. We are being called to do our part in advance of Yahowah finishing the job so that as many as are open and willing have an opportunity to make the right decision. On Yom Kippurim, the day of reconciliations in the Babel year of 6000 Yah, October 2, 2033, at sunset, guess who is coming for dinner? The overall significance, wakabod, the power, splendor and status, the honorable nature, of Yahowah, will be revealed, becoming more openly known, Gala, will be exposed, disclosed, and recognized. And every proclamation of the human herald, Wakol Besar, each revelation by the one bringing the good news, will reveal this, Araya, will show this such that it is visible, observable, and perceptible, all together in its entirety, Yakda, completely and consistently at the right moment. This is reliable because, KY, the mouth, Peh, of Yahowah, has spoken it, Daber, has said it, communicating this message. Yashayah/Isaiah 40:5. Again, this has not yet occurred. Daud, as the Passover lamb, was so innocuous in his appearance, especially by Yashayah's depiction in the 53rd chapter, that he was not recognized as Daud, much less Yahowah. And Jesus never existed. The last time Yahowah revealed himself to Yisra'el was at the onset of the Yatzah Exodus when he was rebuffed by his people. It will not occur again until Yom Kippurim in year 6000 Yah, 10 years from this rewriting of Coming Home in 2023. If you are a Jew reading this and do not care what 2.5 billion Christians have been led to believe, I'd encourage you to reconsider. They have misappropriated your prophecies regarding your God, your people, and his return for you. It is vital that you reclaim what they have stolen so that you are among the chosen people gathered in Jerusalem to celebrate his arrival. Along the way, if you don't already, you might even learn the name of the Son of God and your Messiah. While the Choder sucker, Basar herald, Zeroah, sower of seeds, Malake messenger, Naker observant and responsive foreigner, Kal voice, and Ed witness, Yada, one who knows is Daud's herald, Yashayah is his herald. The great prophet has a lot to say about him. His every proclamation is focused on calling Yisra'el home prior to Daud's arrival. According to God, his message is reliable. On the other side, are the religious ignorant of what God said, or are they hopelessly irrational? How does one believe those who claim to speak for God while contradicting him, as was the case with Paul, Akiba, and Muhammad? Is every religion predicated on cognitive dissonance, the willingness to believe wholly inconsistent, incompatible, and incongruent ideas? Beyond showing their inability to think, little do the religious know that Yahowah answered Yashayah's question on what to kara, read and recite, by sharing an allegory Daud had composed 300 years earlier in one of his most inspiring Mizmor song, the 103rd. Just as Daud would quote from his 22nd psalm to explain what he was doing on Passover at the single most important moment of his second existence, Yahowah shared his son's Mashal word picture with Yashayah in the heart of this prophecy to reveal who he would be working with on this day. God is the greatest communicator mankind has or will ever witness, and his favorite writer was the author of this allegory. For those of us who have come to appreciate Yahowah's style, which is to weave threads into the tapestry of his word which we can pursue to the point of understanding, this affirms that Daud was telling us the truth about the extraordinarily important and mutually dependent nature of his relationship with Yahowah because God, himself, quoted Daud. A voice urges, Kal, Amar, read and recite, choosing to be called out and welcomed, Kara, of your own free will answer the invitation. So, I asked, Wa, Amar, any, what should I read and recite, Ma Kara, who should I invite to be called out, who should I welcome, what should I offer to read aloud and announce? Every proclamation of the herald, Kol ha-Basar, each message and the overall good news of the messenger in its entirely, is a place to dwell, Chatzar, an abode, which is entirely loving, providing all of the benefits of the relationship, Wa Kol Chisidhu, is a place of unfailing kindness, devotion, and steadfast affection, akin to a gleaming flower blossoming and shining, Ka Tsyts, a beautifully adorned, sparkling, productive, and flourishing, while spreading across an open terrain, Ha. Sada, growing within the pasture and overall environs. Yashayah/Isaiah 40 verse 6. This dwelling place, Chaser, the abode, he will be gone for a while, Yabesh, he will temporarily dry up, Kal perfect, the blossoming and gleaming flower, Tsyts, the beautifully adorned and sparkling bud, he will be treated with contempt at this moment, Nabal, he will be temporarily disrespected and disdained, Kal perfect, because, truly, KY, the spirit, Rowak, of Yahowah, Yahowah, she blows like the wind, dispersing and driving away forcefully through him, Nasha Ba who, she moves within him and out of him like the wind at this time, Kal perfect. Insightfully, Achan, truthfully, as a means to reveal causation, the abode, Chatzar, the dwelling place, is of the family, Ha-Am, Yashayah 40:7, because the word, Wadaber, of our God, Elohi Anaknu, stands, Kyum, is established and confirmed, forever, L'Olam, eternally and forevermore. Yashayah/Isaiah 40 verse 8. While there are several variations of 40:7-8 among the scrolls, between the Masoretic text and Septuagint, this captures every aspect of each with minimal redundancy. If you care to look, and we will in a moment, Daud composed this Mashal word picture and scribed it in his 103rd Mizmor song 3 centuries before Yahowah shared it with Yashayah. And yet, nary a person has made the connection between this prophecy and the author of this remarkable allegory. And all of that is in spite of the fact that, in the 5th Mizmor, Daud announced his role in this prophetic portrayal regarding Yahowah's return. That is especially disappointing because its literary genius has Daud's fingerprints all over it. For example, the word for grass, chaser, also conveys an abode or dwelling, and, thus, was used to paint a verbal portrait of the bodies in which our souls reside. And should you have missed the connection, both Daud and Yahowah affirm it by directly associating people with this dwelling which is akin to dried out hay deprived of water, a point made brilliantly in the 103rd Mizmor. Further, while Tsyts can be rendered flower, it is more accurately translated as a written inscription on a shining memorial plaque like those found at a gravesite or as an engraved trophy memorializing some prior accomplishment. This becomes especially relevant when we realize that the verb, Nabal, denotes something which loses its sheen and wears out, degrading and decaying, because it is disdained as foolish and seen as stupid, senseless, and contemptible. These are all concepts God would rightly attribute to man's memorial plaques and trophies, but not to flowers. Expecting us to be able to read what the words actually say, and thus render them correctly, is why the nature of the chaser was explained but not the Tsyts. Yahowah and his son, Daud, clearly see us as more capable than we are prone to act, or at least superior to our current translations or thinking. Religion has dumbed us down, and politics has homogenized us. Daud's original choice of words is telling because we humans are wont to remember those who have passed away, honoring their lives by engraving our sentiments and their names on gravesite memorial plaques. But man's wishes and remembrances will not only fade away and be forgotten upon the arrival of the Spirit, man's religious and patriotic platitudes will be seen as foolish and contemptible. Also, as an interesting aside, the best-known memorial, with the most flowery and beautiful inscriptions, the World Holocaust Remembrance Center, is that which commemorates and seeks to remember the mass murders associated with man's greatest act of inhumanity, an ode to Daud's people's worst experience. By taking us directly to Zion in the heart of Jerusalem, we ought to be reminded of who lived there with Yahowah and what he had to say about establishing a father/son relationship with God. We should be motivated to consider what happened there and what it means to us. It is material to know where God is returning and to whom. We should ponder who he is bringing along with him as well. But most do not, because Yahuwah's prophetic testimony through Yahshua undermines their religious beliefs that either Jesus Christ or an unknown Mashiach will save them. Also telling, the Cowl voice is saying that God's people should read about the welcoming invitation God has offered to meet with us. In that is the verbal root of mikra, with the my interrogative added to encourage us to ponder the who, what, why, and when of these invitations to meet with God, we ought to be drawn to the Mizmor Daud wrote because he fulfilled them. As such, coming home serves as a literal fulfillment of Yahshua 40. And from this perspective, the voice and the herald are being equated as one and the same. His proclamation is focused upon the beneficial dwelling place and abode the Father and Son have lovingly provided. And it is Yahuwah's Ruach, Yahshua attests, who enlightens and empowers the Choder serving as the Cowl and Basar. As affirmation, the message you are now reading regarding what Father and Son have and will achieve is presented here, and nowhere else. The abode of which we are all speaking is nothing less than the eternal covenant family home of God. For those checking English translations, you will read that, the glorious presence of the Lord will be seen by all flesh. All flesh would be all animals, and that is neither possible nor desirable. Even if interpreted as all humans, most will be exterminated upon God's return, so that's no better. Moreover, by the time when he can be seen, there will be no reason to proclaim his message on how to prepare to approach him. It will be too late for that. Therefore, the only rational interpretation is the one which is consistent with the primary meaning of Basar, a human herald will be proclaiming God's message. This is also consistent with how Yahshua has been using Basar. And in this case, every proclamation coming from the herald will serve to reveal Daud's overall significance, something he will accomplish in an integrated and amplified manner, conveying Father's and Son's message in its entirety, sharing the details which form the larger portrait of the covenant family. It is essential to our well-being that we know where Father and Son are returning and to whom, even when and why this will occur. Upon the elevated and exalted mountain, Al-Har Gaba, toward the high and exalted mount, ascend, Allah, go and climb up. Sion, the signs posted along the way, Sion, the written directions posted on the path, proclaim the good news, Basar, bring the positive proclamation, publishing and announcing the glad tidings, Peel participle, a verbal adjective which explains the action whereby the subject, the signs posted on Sion, put the object, you and me, into action, for you to approach, La'ada. Powerfully and with authority, Ba coach, mightily with all of your capability in newfound potential, in your vigor and robust nature, even with your restored qualifications as they pertain to your function and purpose, choose to raise your voice, Rum Kaul Ada, of your own volition lift up your vocalizations and verbal pronouncements, hyphal imperative. The object is engaged by the subject such that they are continuously similar in their actions, herald, bringing this message, Basar. Proclaiming this positive and uplifting report, publishing and announcing the glad tidings, Peel participle, a verbal adjective which explains the action whereby the subject puts the object into action, to Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, source from which teaching and guidance, instruction and direction, regarding reconciliation flow. Lift up on high, Rum, of your own volition raise up to an even higher elevation, exalting, even increasing the importance of, hyphal imperative, and choose to proclaim, Omar, of your own free will, announcing and saying, Kal imperative, fear not, no longer feel intimidated, anxious, or apprehensive, Al Yar, do not be frightened or afraid, Kal imperfect Jussive, genuinely and with ongoing implications as a third-person expression of volition, cities, Year, the towns and populated places, of Yehuda, Yehuda, the beloved of Yah, those who relate to Yah and are related to Yah. Behold, look up now and see, Haina, pay attention at this moment and notice that here is, your God, Elohi Adam. Yahshua/Isaiah 40 verse 9. Mountains do not speak, it is signs which convey a message. And none are more important than Sion, the signs posted along the way. These can be seen in the mind's eye along the ridgeline of Maria, along the path between Yahuwah's home and that of his son, Daud. We approach the one through the other. I would encourage every member of Yahuwah's covenant family to read each prophecy as if it were personal and pertains to what we are called to achieve. And so, in this case, I see myself as the Cowl voice, powerfully, and with God's authority, being raised at this time as his Basar herald to proclaim the good news pertaining to his return to Yerushalayim. The time of intimidation will end within the decade for Yehudim as they prepare to meet their Maker. Yahuwah's focus is as it has always been, upon Sion, Yerushalayim, and Yehuda, right up to and including the moment of his return. There is no hint of, indeed no room for, a church in Rome, a cathedral in Washington, London, or Paris, nor a mosque in Mecca. God is returning to and for his people, Yehudim in Yerushalayim. Period. End of conversation. Behold, Haina, pay attention and notice, Yahuwah, Yahuwah, an accurate transliteration of the name of Eloah, God guided by his Torah, instructions regarding his Haya, existence and our Shalom, reconciliation, the upright pillar of the tabernacle, Edown, the upright one, will arrive, bow, come, returning, Kal imperfect, with a Chazak empowered leader and impassioned defender, Ba Chazak, with the loud blast of a trumpet and a very strong and fervent person, one. With military prowess who is ready to fight, one who is intensely prepared and resolutely capable of encouraging, repairing, and protecting, one who embodies the right character, appropriate status, and vocal strength to govern appropriately, who is also a courageous leader with a firm and strong hand who clearly knows how to lead in the proper direction. And then, his Zeroah, protective shepherd, sacrificial lamb, strong arm, and the one sowing seeds, Zeroah, who, the prevailing and effective nature of the leading ram among his sheep, the one with the strength, resolve, and overall ability of his remarkably important and impactful leader of the flock, this ram who engages and fights as a shepherd protecting his sheep, who with his strong arm is fruitful in his ways, accomplishing the mission, especially when sowing the seeds of truth. While denoting and advancing the purpose of God and his sacrificial lamb, will vividly communicate, mashal, will wisely exercise authority over individuals and governments based upon the value of his proverbial sayings, his world-renowned prophetic discourse and eminently meaningful phrases and terminology, holding dominion by painting pictures with words, for him, lahu, to approach him. Look up and pay attention, Hina, behold the details and be observant, to him, Ethu the compensation for his loyalty, Sakarhu, the just return and reward offered for his services and steadfast devotion, and, Wa, his work, past and present, Piulahu, his labor for what he is doing and has done, is right in front of him, Lapanahu, is approaching him and facing him, in his very presence, appearing before him. Yashayah/Isaiah 40 verse 10. Yahowah's Chazak empowered leader and impassioned defender and his Zeroah protective shepherd, sacrificial lamb, and strong arm have so much in common, they are one and the same. This is Daud, the Son of God, Messiah, Shepherd, and King. And as has been the case for as long as we humans have known God, it has been men like Daud who have spoken for him. So, while Yahowah can and does speak for himself, he much prefers to engage through his favorite people. Affirming this, it was Daud who was known for his mashal ability to paint pictures with words and who excelled in his soccer service and devotion to God. At this moment, he is in Yahowah's presence, viewing a restored Yisra'el. He is there for many reasons, one of which is that this will be a time of war when Yahowah and his Chazak will be vanquishing all of those who have foolishly opposed him and his people. Not only has Daud fought more effectively on behalf of Yisra'el than anyone else, but he is also the only one who meets these criteria. In the understatement of the millennia, Yahowah encourages his people to pay attention to his son, Daud. His reward for his loyalty and devotion, for fulfilling Chag Matzah, is commensurate with being Yahowah's Bakar firstborn. The sovereign will crown him king of the universe. It is as it should be. Daud's sacrifice has been completely neglected and disavowed by Yisra'el. This must change such that those celebrating Yahowah's return with his son will know who made it possible for them to enjoy this moment. Also, since Daud was appropriately compensated for being king of Yisrael circa 1000 BCE, the work for which he is being rewarded for having accomplished this day pertains to his service as the Passover lamb. And it is the recognition that Yahowah is encouraging his people to embrace. Like Ka, a shepherd, Ra'ah, he will tend, Ra'ah, care for the needs of, leading, feeding, and protecting, Kal imperfect, actually, literally, genuinely, and continually, his flock, Ederhu, those who need his assistance. He will gather, kabats, he will collect and obtain, Peel imperfect, the lambs, Tali, the young and vulnerable sheep, in his strong and capable arms, with him being a protective shepherd, productive ram, and sacrificial lamb, Ba Zeroah, who, with all the resolve and overall ability he can muster as an important and impactful individual of action who, as a ram among sheep is a leader and fighter, engaged within the flock as a shepherd protecting his sheep, who is fruitful in his ways. Accomplishing the mission, especially when sowing the seeds of truth and advancing the purpose of the arm of God and his sacrificial lamb. He will guide, leading, Nahal, he will direct, sustain, and nurture, caring for and helping, Peel imperfect, whereby the consistent guidance will benefit the sheep, those who are nursing, Yul, the mothers suckling the youngest sheep, lifting them up, Nasa, raising and carrying them, honoring and respecting them, in his lap, Ba check. Yashayah/Isaiah 40 verse 11. Yahowah has just shared his understanding of Zeroah, surrounding it with words we would readily understand. As a Ariah Eder, shepherd tending God's flock, Daud was the shepherd's shepherd. And this is what made Daud God's Zeroah, capable arm and productive ram protecting the flock. Daud was not only a Ariah, shepherd, who was afforded the privilege of Ariah, tending to Yahowah's chosen sheep, leading and feeding them, guiding and protecting them, but he did so as the Zeroah, sacrificial lamb, earning everyone's respect. But there is far more to this amazing term that awaits our discovery. It will soon lead to one of the most revealing and affirming statements we have yet encountered. Based upon its use in the Torah, Shemuel/Exodus 6:6, 15:16, Bamidbar/Numbers 6:19 and Devarim/Deuteronomy 4 verse 34 and 16:12, even Mizmor/Psalm 77 verse 15 and Yashayah/Isaiah 33 verse 2, Zeroah, is used to symbolically present the sacrificial lamb's ability to shoulder our burdens in association with Passover. And while that is true throughout the Torah, there are some notable exceptions among the prophets. Zeroah is based upon Zerah, to sow seeds, and thus denotes the ideas of being productive and fruitful in sowing the seeds of truth, and of conceiving offspring. No man exhibited these attributes more so than Daud. Nonetheless, most Hebrew dictionaries define Zeroah as arm, but that usage is quite rare, occurring in just over a dozen of some 90 references. But to be fair, the arm and shoulder, like the hand, in Hebrew are almost always presented symbolically, conveying an individual's influence and capability, their power and strength, their ability to be productive, to get things done, and to prevail. Similar to the symbolic usage found here in Yashayah 40, while also being deployed during prophetic references to the last days, we find Zeroah used in Mizmor/Psalm 98 verse 1 and Yashayah/Isaiah 51:9, 52:10, 63:5, all addressing Yahowah's ability to vanquish his enemies upon his return. God, like his son, is a fighter, not a pacifist. Recognizing this, Zeroah is deployed 3 times to denote a king leading a large army. As a result, a broken Zeroah is symbolic of a defeated military force. Not surprisingly, the word is used in this context on 8 occasions. Driving right to the heart of Zeroah's metaphorical usage in this context, it is twice deployed identically to how we see it used here in Yashayah 40. In both, Yisra'el describes the role of a particularly important individual in God's sight, a ram among the sheep, an empowered and capable shepherd, a productive fighter who consistently prevails when defending his flock from those who would harm them, a leader among his people with the strength, resolve, and character to make the necessary sacrifices for his flock to live free and fruitful lives by sowing the seeds of truth as the arm of God, thereby guiding the sheep to the sacrificial lamb. In Yashayah/Isaiah 63 verse 12, Moses was presented as a Yisra'el for his contribution during the Exodus, whereby this remarkable ram led Yah's flock, the children of Yisra'el, out of captivity in Mitzrayim. Thereafter, he served as their shepherd by working with YAHOWAH to compose the Torah. Therefore, since this reference in Yashayah 40 clearly depicts Daud as YAHOWAH as Yisra'el upon his return, we find the two most important and productive individuals YAHOWAH deployed being described as Yisra'el, Moses, and Daud. They are rams among the sheep. In recognition of this concluding thought, there are two other times Yisra'el is used that we'd be wise to consider, both of which may profoundly change the way you process the very words you are reading. The first in Debri HaYaumim/2 Chronicles 6 verse 32 and the last is found in Yashayah/Isaiah 53 verse 1. From that perspective, the introduction to what is among the most acclaimed prophecies speaks of someone to whom YAHOWAH has made this realization known. It acknowledges the existence of an individual who will or has uniquely ascertained and clearly conveyed the identity of the Yisra'el. Especially relevant, the sole reason that this man is mentioned at this moment is that by seeking to establish and verify the point of the prophetic message YAHOWAH was conveying through Yashayah, his analysis and insights are relevant. Who, has come to establish, verify, and prove, Haman, has reliably, confidently, and dependably demonstrated as true, perfect, the point of our message from far away, La Shamuah Anaknu, reporting the information and news from YAHOWAH through Yashayah while in a different geographical area, and then announcing it to others. And, to whom, Almai, has the Yisra'el, strong arm, protective ram, and sacrificial lamb, Yisra'el, of YAHOWAH, the proper pronunciation of the name of Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence in our shalom, restoration, been revealed and made known, Gala, been openly exposed through evidence and reason. Yashayah/Isaiah 53 verse 1. In this context, every positive attribute we have considered fits YAHOWAH's Yisra'el, Moses and Daud. They were uniquely important while serving as the hand of God. Both were empowered, capable, and protective as leaders of God's people. They were productive rams among the sheep who consistently prevailed when fighting to defend God's flock. And one, of course, was also the sacrificial lamb, to which the Yashayah 53 prophecy applies. The answer to the question posed by YAHOWAH is obvious because there is only one individual addressing the identity of the Yisra'el, sacrificial lamb of God. And now, we know that God is acknowledging that this same individual is better prepared to explain how his Yisra'el fulfilled passage than any other. This was not, however, the first time YAHOWAH inspired a prophet to use the identification of the Yisra'el to draw attention to his latter-day herald. Yisra'el was used to identify this unique individual by Shlomo reconciliation Solomon, Daud's son, upon the completion and dedication of YAHOWAH's family home. At the seminal moment in the life of a united Yisra'el, standing atop Moriah with the recently completed temple gleaming in the background, the man noted for his wisdom, Shlomo Solomon, delivered a profoundly important speech while dedicating the building YAHOWAH had designed to showcase the Ark of the Covenant, the tablets of stone, and original autograph of the Torah Moses had scribed. With Jacob's descendants gathered before him, and speaking of the promises YAHOWAH had made to his father, Daud, while desirous of guiding his people's footsteps into the future, Solomon used an especially descriptive term, Nakri, a discerning foreigner from a distant place and time speaking a different language, who, as a result of being observant would come to understand, to tell the children of Yisra'el how they should respond to the words this individual would write on their behalf. After describing the importance of the Ark of the Covenant which had been placed in the center of God's home, Solomon reiterated many of the wonderful things which would benefit Yisra'el if the people continued to observe the Torah. But knowing they would not, he said the following. Therefore, Wagam, also and in addition, regarding someone else, the observant and discerning foreigner from a different ethnicity and geographic location who will come to understand, Ha-Nakri, someone from a different place and culture, speaking a different language, who, having paid attention will comprehend and respond, from Nakr, someone who, by being attentive and astute will come to be acquainted, recognize, and acknowledge something which deserves our highest regard and respect. Who, to show the way to the benefits of the relationship, Asher, who, to reveal the correct and restrictive path to walk to get the most out of life, is not of your people, Lo, Min, Am, Ada, this Yisra'el who. He will come, Wa'abau, he will arrive and enter the scene, from a distant country in a distant time, Min, Eretz Rachok, out of a land a great distance from Yisrael and following a long interval of time, for the express purpose of being a witness and providing answers regarding, Laman, for the sake of responding and replying to, providing testimony as a witness with the express intent and purpose of revealing, your, Ada. YAHOWAH is, surprisingly important, Ha-Gadol, tremendously empowering and distinguished, growth-promoting and magnifying, and astonishingly great, name, Shem, personal and proper designation, renown, and reputation, the influence of your hand, Yad Ada, your ability to accomplish the mission, especially your Yad, the first letter in your name, which pictographically displays an open hand reaching down and out, defines your role in our lives, denoting your ability to engage and accomplish the task at hand, along with the Chazak. Powerful and passionate individual who is prepared to lead. Ha-Chazak, the very strong and influential person with a fighting spirit who is ready and able to protect his people from those who would otherwise seek to harm them, the one who is intensely prepared and resolutely capable of encouraging, repairing, and defending his extended family, the one who embodies the right character, appropriate status, and speaking ability to govern appropriately with a firm and strong hand who clearly knows how to lead in the proper direction, and, the Yisra'el. Protective shepherd and sacrificial lamb, Yisra'el, who, the prevailing and effective nature, the strength, resolve, and overall ability of this remarkably important and impactful individual of action who, as a leader and fighter is engaged as a shepherd among his sheep, who is fruitful in his ways, accomplishing the mission, especially when sowing the seeds of truth while denoting and advancing the purpose of the arm of God, of his shepherd and sacrificial lamb, whom you have extended, Yada Yahowah, through whom you have stretched and reached out. When, he arrives on the scene and chooses to pursue this, when he comes, bearing these associations, wanting to clarify the proper direction toward the ultimate goal which is to enter and be included, perfect consecutive, literally and genuinely, during this moment in time, and of his own volition, then, he will help interested parties reconcile their relationship by providing those who exercise good judgment with the information and justifications needed to make a correct and reasoned decision, he will intervene in the relationship by providing an accurate assessment, enabling thoughtful individuals to come to an agreement, and by foreseeing future events he will provide persuasive arguments which are assured to deliver the expected results, regarding this familial relationship, pertaining to and concerning God's home and family. Dabrim Hayawmim / Words of the Days / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 32. When you hear it out of the heavens, coming from the atmosphere, Adashama min Hashemaim, listen to what comes out of the spiritual realm by way of the sky, from radio waves and especially satellite-based broadband internet connections, perhaps, within the location where you live, min Makon Yashab Ada, within the place you are located and dwell, then, engage and act accordingly, doing everything, Asaka Kol, under the auspices of free will, endeavor to expend the considerable effort required to receive all the benefits, doing everything consistent with the example and pattern he has set, perfect consecutive, which, to show the way, Asher, that, to reveal the proper path to get the most out of life and receive the benefits associated with the relationship, the Nakri observant foreigner from a different ethnicity and geographic location who understands, Nakri. This man from a different place and culture, speaking a different language who is uniquely discerning, has invited you to read, Kara el Ada, has proclaimed and offered to you about God, has recited to you, summoning you to it, calling you out to meet with and be welcomed by God, imperfect, for the express purpose of being a witness, who provides answers such that, Laman, for the sake of responding, providing testimony with the express intent and purpose of revelation such that, all peoples of the earth, Kol, Eretz, everyone, every family and nation of the material realm, will have a genuine and ongoing opportunity to become familiar with Yada, to know, acknowledge, accept, and understand. Yada will be shown and find, becoming aware of Yada and familiar with as a result of the revelation and have the means to comprehend, imperfect, your name, Shem, Ada, therefore, your proper designation and actual reputation, coming to respect and revere you, YYV1C5, Ada, once revitalized, approach your awesome nature, simultaneously along with, concurrently with your people, Ada, Yisra'el, individuals who struggle and wrestle or engage and endure with God. And also, so that, they may know, Yada, they might acknowledge, accept, and understand, that, truthfully, assuredly, your family in this house, that your home, which to reveal the correct path to walk to give life meaning that, Asher, to show the way to benefit from the relationship, I have built for the family, Bana, Shalomo, have constructed for the generations, for the son and the son's son, are designated and called, Kara, is summoned and received, proclaimed and appointed, and especially called out and welcomed, by your name, Shem, Ada, by your proper designation, your reputation and renown. Dabrim Hayawmim / Words of the Days / 2 Chronicles 6 verse 33. Other than Yahowah speaking directly to all humanity in his own voice, which isn't possible in this context because he's not a Nakri foreigner, imagine the wonderment in the minds of those listening to Solomon 3,000 years ago, trying to ascertain how this could even be possible. Since God is not the voice out of the sky, then how would everyone on earth be able to listen and benefit concurrently? And why, they may have wondered, would God want to speak through a foreigner to Yisra'el and Goim concurrently, from outside of Yisra'el, and in a language other than Hebrew? The preamble to this prophecy is amazing, and yet now, since this capability is so integrated into our lives, with the average individual spending 7 hours a day listening, looking, and reading that which they have selected from the cloud, the fulfillment appears almost mundane. But still, consider the unlikely intersection of someone thousands of years and thousands of miles from Yisra'el, a complete stranger in a distant place and time, becoming so enthralled with Yahowah's words that he would compose 20,000 pages of insights on the Torah, Micra and Berith, all gleaned by translating Yahowah's word into the lingua franca of the world, the language spoken by more Yehudim than Hebrew, somehow coming upon the realization that Daud is the son of God. Yahowah is Mashiach and Melech, while also serving as his Zeroah. As was the case with the Choder insignificant branch and sucker composing the Nes banner, Nes, sign, signal, this isn't because this Nakri observant and discerning foreigner is special, because he, unlike those whose words are vital, remains mostly anonymous. He is simply doing what Solomon did on this day, citing the promises Yahowah made to Moses and Daud on behalf of Yisra'el. 3,000 years ago Yahowah revealed that he would use a Gentile to reach his people and call them home. He would even endorse what he would write and say, telling his people to do as he said, recognizing that this Nakri would, come to know him by being observant, that he would come to understand him by being discerning, then base everything he would write and say on what he observed by closely examining and carefully considering the Torah and maybe the guidance and prophets. He would even Yada Yah focus on the importance of knowing and understanding Yahowah's name. Now we know why Yah wanted his message written in English, the language spoken by more Jews and Gentiles than any other, why the proper recognition of Moses and Daud was so important to Yah, as well as why Yahowah would have to turn to a lowly Nakri known as Yada to awaken Yisra'el. This may be the one and only time that Yahowah asked his people to engage based upon everything a foreigner had to say. Yet it was said of this Nakri that he would serve as Laman, a witness, as someone who provides answers, which can be Kara, read and recited on behalf of people the world over, especially Yisra'el. Beyond the written translations and insights found in Yada Yahowah, an introduction to God, observations, coming home, Babel, and Twistianity, even beyond the reach of Yah's word being recited throughout Yada Yah radio and shattering myths, and our more recent social media outreach, this is also inferring that Yada will be invited to serve alongside Eliah as the unnamed witness during the time of Jacob's troubles. Malachi/Malachi 4 verse 5 and Zechariah/Zechariah 4 verse 14. Beyond all of this, there is but one reason that the Nakri observant and discerning foreigner in a faraway place and time would have been introduced and authenticated by Yahowah during the dedication of his home. Yahowah wants Yisra'el, and the world at large, to consider what he has translated and shared because the information, insights, and perspective he is providing are relevant and credible, valid and reconciling, indeed dependable and trustworthy because he has thoughtfully considered what Dowd has accomplished by fulfilling Chag Matzah. By investigating something others were afraid to even consider, the Nakri became so uniquely relevant to knowing Yahowah, to appreciating what he is offering, and to recognizing what he is asking in return, that God saw fit to validate his witness, one based entirely upon the Torah, YYV1 Mizmor. To suggest that this has been yet another revealing sojourn into the Word, enabling us to make connections which lead to understanding, would be an understatement. And while we may want to linger here, before we lose sight of the psalm which brought us to this remarkable place, let's return to and complete our review of Mizmor 5. Continuing his plea to be just, even fair, and thus hold those who have promoted political, religious, and conspiratorial schemes accountable for the misery they have inflicted on Yisra'el and, indeed, on people everywhere, Dowd wrote. For, indeed, emphasizing this point, there is nothing that is reliable, firmly established, or trustworthy in their mouths, pehu kun, there is nothing that is dependable, enduring, or steadfast among their words, nothing secure or settled in their speech. Their inner nature is, karabhem, right to the core being they are psychologically predisposed, to be destructive with their malicious speech, to be counterproductive with devastating consequences, becoming relentless liars. Their throat, garon hem, is an open, pada, grave, keber, burial site. They flatter, deceitfully seducing, chalak, they are slimy and slippery, smooth talkers who consistently mislead, providing hopeful and encouraging opinions which are inaccurate and divisive. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 5 verse 9. Dowd is right once again. Nothing redeeming comes out of the mouths of the political or religious. They are rotten to the core. Their every word is malicious and counterproductive. They are relentless liars. Within their soaring, majestic buildings paid for by others, and with the mystique of authority and trappings of power, their deceitful words are as seductive as they are deadly. They have made themselves so hard to ignore, so prominent and integrated within society, they have become difficult to oppose. There is no media outlet or mass communication venue willing to risk the backlash from believers who can't even fathom the possibility that those that they admire are playing them for fools. The reason that Dowd is so insistent in holding the religious accountable, especially among his people, is that they are responsible for depriving Yisra'el of the gifts of life and access to Yahowah, both of which he magnanimously provided. They robbed his people of the covenant and him of the respect he has earned. Fortunately, Dowd has God's ear, and from his lips to Yah's heart, this is what will occur. Hold him accountable, Hashem who, please declare him guilty and elect to make him suffer the consequences because he remains liable, requiring recompense, him, is from 4 QPs whereas the MT has, them, hyphal imperative, God, Elohim. They have fallen of their own accord, Naphal, they have chosen to bring this on themselves, electing to squander the opportunity to go to a higher position, they have been allotted a much lower one, having prostrated themselves, Kal in perfect Joseph, through their advice and schemes, Ba Mautzahem, with their deliberations, plans, thinking, and counsel, through their customs, traditions, proposals, practices, religions, and conspiracies, from yachts, to deliberate, consult, and conspire. Together then advise. Cast them out, Nadakhem, hunt them down and drive them away, banishing them, hyphal imperative, along with, Ba, with and in, the great abundance and widespread nature, Rob, the sheer quantity, extensive range, and duration, of their revolting rebellion, Pesha, Hem, of what they have done that is contrary to the way and in defiance of the standard, because, indeed, they have been contentious in their defiance against you and have bitterly rebelled against you, Mara Ba, Ada, they are hostile to you and have caused you distress and anguish, provoking you, Kal perfect. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 5 verse 10. Very early on in this process, nearly 18 years ago, we came to realize that by sending religious leaders to Sheol, God was being fair. They have dug their own graves. They have all fallen of their own accord and stumbled on their words. Each has tripped on their tongues. Their advice and counsel, customs and traditions, proposals and practices, especially their conspiracies and religious interpretations have cost the unsuspecting their souls and have taken countless others to where they, themselves, are headed. And it's not just the provocateurs but, also, their provocations, the religious and their religions, which must be banished for heaven to exist on earth. It is the greatest irony of all. Claiming to speak for God, claiming to serve God, claiming to provide access to God, religious leaders are universally in rebellion against Yahowah, bitterly contentious and openly defiant, such that everyone, without exception, who believes them dies estranged from God. All religions lead away from Yahowah, as do all who advocate on their behalf. And yet, even when God, himself, reveals that he is universally opposed to the religious and will cast them away for the great abundance and widespread nature of their rebellion, the religious are not only incapable of processing God's testimony, they angrily attack Yah's word and those who share it with them. As we continue to study the first 20 or so Mizmor, we will encounter many more references to a singular adversarial individual whose influence on Yahowah's people is so caustic we are assured that he will be held accountable. In many of them, we witness the same transition from him to them seen in the Dead Sea Scroll depiction of the previous statement, indicating how the one corrupts the many. There is a better way. So, let all who take refuge in you, kol chasa ba, let everyone who places their trust in you, relying upon you to keep them safe, kal participle, rejoice and be glad, samak, be elated, delighted in this. Forevermore, lach aulam, for all eternity, let them choose to sing uplifting and joyful songs, ranan, let them of their own free will shout for joy and express themselves melodically, making beautiful music, peal in perfect jussive. Cover and clothe them, sakak al-hem, envelop and adorn them, shielding them, placing a protective cover over them, hyphal imperfect, such that those who love, Ahab, so that those who engage in a loving relationship based upon your name, Shem, Ada, your proper and personal designation, will rejoice in having chosen you, Alatz ba, Ada, they are jubilant and triumphant because they have chosen you. Kal imperfect jussive. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 5 verse 11. It is, perhaps, the single most amazing realization in the universe. God allows us to choose him. The truth be known, there is nothing more enjoyable or rewarding than developing a personal relationship with our Heavenly Father. We give up nothing of value and gain everything worthwhile when we choose to trust and rely upon Yah. And the first step in this process, after making acquaintances, is as Dowd has written, coming to appreciate to the point of falling in love with God's name, YAHOWAH. So why is it that there isn't a single religious denomination or political party named after YAHOWAH? Why is it that the religious have actually changed and replaced Yahuwah's name, removing it from his testimony 7,000 times, replacing it with Satan's title, and then calling the resulting book, Babel with the Lord Bible? Why is it that as few as 1 in a million actually know and say YAHOWAH? It may have been a dozen years ago, but I recall being frustrated, knowing that YHWH wasn't Yahweh, since it, by God's own admission, was based upon Haya, was, is, and will be. But no matter how long I searched, I couldn't find a single individual or resource that explained how to pronounce the rest of his name using evidence and reason. Laughably, those making an attempt resorted to Greek, as if Hebrew was irrelevant. Even worse, the scholars and theologians were all in universal defiance of reality, claiming that God's name was unpronounceable because there were no vowels in Hebrew. If that were the case, how is it then that every other word and name is pronounceable using the same 22 letters and that 5 of the 22 are consistently rendered as vowels? I cannot recall now if it was weeks or a month, but I remember examining the pronunciation of every Hebrew word in the entire lexicon that contained a Y, H, or W. And while that led me to realize that it was either Yahuwah or Yahuwah with 100% certainty, since there was no question regarding the pronunciation of the Y or H, the deciding factors concerning the W were as apparent as they were plentiful. There were scores of Hebrew names based upon Yahuwah's name which are now transliterated akin to Yaub, Yahweh, and Yauna, making the pronunciation of the only letter in question, the W, obvious. But the clincher was the 3 most commonly spoken Hebrew words, Shalom, Torah, and Elohim. They are all actually written Shalom, Torah, and Eloah, Elohim in the plural, conclusively demonstrating that YHWH is pronounced YHOWAH. The next step was to accurately describe what his name means. And by turning to Paleo-Hebrew, doing so was as straightforward as it was magnificent. In Yod Hey, we see Yahweh Yod, reaching down and out to us with an open hand. It reveals that God is ready to welcome us and then lift up those willing to grasp hold. In the 2 Heys, we find 2 individuals, a man and a woman as it would transpire based upon their placement. A concluding Hey makes a Hebrew noun feminine. Both individuals, which are likely representative of Abraham's and Sarah's role in the covenant in Yisra'el, are standing up, reaching up, and looking up to God. The Wah depicts a tent peg, the device used to secure and enlarge a home, including the tent of the eternal witness. It speaks of increasing and adding to something, which in the case of the 2 individuals within God's name, would indicate that they are being magnified and enriched while being kept safe and secure. In Yahuwah's name, therefore, we see the covenant family, sharing what I had discovered about the most important name in the universe, the source of life and enlightenment, liberation and empowerment, became my passion. It remains so to this day. Yes, indeed, KY, surely and reliably, you commend, favor, and bless, Adabarak, you lower yourself, getting down on your knees, to lovingly and beneficially lift up, peel imperfect, those who are right and therefore innocent, Sadak, those who are correct and thus vindicated, Yahuwah, an accurate transliteration of the name of Eloah, God guided by his Torah, instructions regarding his Haya, existence in our Shalom, reconciliation, with a shield, Ba Hatsina, with that which provides a protective covering for the entire individual, for QPs reads, with, while the MT shows, like, which envelopes and surrounds him, Adder, which wraps around and crowns him, Kal imperfect energic none, such that you can accept him and be pleased with him, Ratzon, such that he is found desirable and pleasing, and having provided restitution you can make amends, favoring him by restoring the relationship. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 5 verse 12. Long ago, I came to realize that the method Yahuwah uses to perfect the imperfect is to envelop them in his spirit of light, thereby adorning and crowning his covenant children, making us appear perfect in his eyes. Where there is light, there is no darkness. Light obliterates it, eliminating it. Now if I may, here is a summary of the magnificent song which has led us to these marvelous discoveries. A Mizmor song of Dowd the beloved, Mizmor la Dowd, to the enduring leader, La Hanatsak, accompanied by stringed instruments, El Hanakaloth. Mizmor 5 dedication. It is your will and my desire because I have chosen and you have decided to thoughtfully listen and respond appropriately, Azan, to my words, each meaningful phrase and promise, Emer Eni, Yahuwah, because you and I both have come to an understanding, Byn, regarding my thought process, Hagig Eni. Mizmor 5:1. We both agree that it is mutually beneficial if you listen attentively and respond accordingly, Kashub, to the voice, Lakau, of my urgent and significant request to help, Shua Eni, my sovereign and counselor, Melech Eni, and my God, Wa'ila. Indeed, because, KY, for you, El Ada, and solely on my own initiative, I want to provide the justification to intervene, having thought about every contingency while foreseeing the future, I want to be persuasive in conveying my point of view, presenting my argument to intercede, Palel. Mizmor 5:2. YAHOWAH, YAHOWAH, in the morning when it's best to gain information regarding the sacrifice as the sun rises during a new day of enlightenment, Boker, you hear, Shama, the sound of my voice, Kaul Eni. At the outset of the day, Boker, I make arrangements and prepare myself for you such that I'm competent and correct, ready for you to deploy, patterning myself after you so that I'm worth using, Barakla Ada. Then I remain watchful and focused, properly adorned with everything arranged, Watsapa. Mizmor 5:3. For God, you are not, Ky lo El Ada, willing to accept that which is wrong or waver regarding that which is malevolent and fraudulent, Chafes Rasha. Countrymen who are counterproductive and harmful, injurious and unethical, RA, cannot congregate or dwell with you because they are alien to you and conspire against you, Lo, Gur Ada. Mizmor 5:4. The arrogant who seek praise, the foolish and flashy, the confused and deluded, Halal, cannot be present, appear, or stand, Lo, Yatsab, before or even near your sight, La Negd Ayin Ada. You hate and are hostile to, abhorring and shunning, saying, all of, Kol, those who are engaged in, practice, or advance, Pa'al, immoral and unjust religious deceit which is twisted and perverted, on. Mizmor 5:5. You either destroy or expel, exterminate or eternally separate, Abad, those who speak, dabber, religious lies, especially the delusions promoting false gods, Kazab. Bloodthirsty individuals, damn, YSH, as well as, Wa, the deliberately misleading and deceitful, including those who hold a false perception of reality and who use guile and subtlety while pretending to be truthful while promoting religious worship, Murma, Yahowah, Yahowah, sees as repulsive and rejects, holding them in contempt as vile and abhorrent, Tab. Mizmor 5:6. But as for me, Wa, Eni, through, Ba, the abundance, Rob, of your devotion and steadfast love, your unfailing kindness and enduring affection, Chisid Ada, I will come, and upon arriving, I will enter, bow, your family and home, Baith Ada. I have chosen on my own initiative to make an informative announcement, explaining this verbally by showing and making this known, Chawa, regarding, El, your set-apart temple and palatial residence, Hikal Kodesh Ada, with reverence and respect to you, Ba Yar Ada. Mizmor 5:7. Yahowah, Yahowah, you want to lead me, guiding me to the most favorable outcome, then rely upon me, trusting me to achieve, Nacha Eni, what you know is right and vindicating, Ba Tzedakah Ada, especially with regard to responding to, Laman, those who, acting as if they were authority figures, are adversarial and opposed to me, Shower Eni. You want to engage such that your way is straightforward and right, Yetzar Derek Ada, before me and in my presence, Lapana Eni. Mizmor 5:8. For, KY, there is nothing that is reliable, firmly established, or trustworthy in their mouths, I'm Ba Pehu Kun. Their inner nature is, Karabhem, to be destructive with their malicious speech, Ha. Their throat, Garon Hem, is an open, Pada, grave, Keber. They flatter, deceitfully seducing, Chalak. Mizmor 5:9. Hold him accountable, Ashem who, God, Elohim. They have fallen of their own accord, Naphal, through their advice and schemes, Ba Mautzahem. Cast them out, Nadakhem, along with, Ba, the great abundance and widespread nature, Rob, of their revolting religious rebellion, Pesha, Hem, because, indeed, KY, they have been contentious in their defiance against you and have bitterly rebelled against you, Mara Ba Ada. Mizmor 5:10. So, Wa, let all who take refuge in you, Kol Chasa Ba Ada, rejoice and be glad, Samak. Forevermore, Lathalam, let them choose to sing uplifting and joyful songs, Ranim. Cover and clothe them, Sakak al-Hem, such that those who love, Wa, Ahab, your name, Shem, Ada, will rejoice in having chosen you, Alatz Ba Ada. Mizmor 5:11. Yes, indeed, KY, you commend, favor, and bless, Ada Barak, those who are right and therefore innocent, Sadak, Yahowah, Yahowah, with a shield, Ba Hatsina, which envelopes and surrounds him, Adar, such that you can accept him and be pleased with him, Ratzon. Mizmor/lyrics to be sung/Psalm 5 verse 12. It continues to be the greatest voyage of discovery humankind has ever undertaken. It has brought us out of the muck of man to the splendor of the Almighty. Endowed, God's Son and our Savior has been our guide along the way. Yod Hey Wah Hey.